I want to start by placing us and you in a very specific physical space. It's a space that I think, well, it really defines the entire psychology of the culture we're looking at today.
Okay.
You're walking down a street in, say, the Medina of Fez,
Yeah.
and it feels more like a tunnel than a street. It's incredibly narrow, it's winding, it's crowded.
Right. And the walls. You have to talk about the walls.
The walls are the most striking thing. To your left, to your right, they're just high, blank, completely featureless.
It creates a sense of disorientation, doesn't it? You have no idea what's behind that wall. It could be a palace. It could be a hovel.
Exactly. To a Western eye, which is so used to front lawns and big bay windows, it looks hostile. It almost looks like a fortress.
It's designed for privacy, for defense in a way.
You keep walking, maybe you smell something pungent, cumin, wood smoke, maybe some donkey dust, but visually it's just a desert of walls. But then you spot a heavy cedar door, it opens.
And you step inside.
You step through a dark, kind of winding corridor, which you realize later is designed specifically to block any line of sight from the street. And then suddenly, it's a complete explosion.
You've stepped into the Riad.
The sensory shift is just, it's violent. All of a sudden, there is light flooding in from the open sky above. There's the sound of water trickling in a central fountain.
The smells change completely.
Gone. The smell of gust is replaced by this smell of damp earth and orange blossoms. And the floor is tiled in these intricate cobalt blue and yellow patterns, the zeligs. It's not just a house. It feels like a representation of paradise.
Now that stark duality, that rough, defensive, almost anonymous exterior, and then the lush, paradisical interior, that's the architectural heart of the world we are diving into today.
The world of Morocco.
Exactly. And as we dig into Arabesque by Claudia Roden, specifically her Moroccan chapters, we find that this architecture is a perfect mirror for the cuisine. It's a food culture of secrets, of complex interiors hidden behind simple exteriors, and of a history that is just so much deeper than, couscous and tagine.
And we are focusing exclusively on Morocco today, even though Roden's book also covers Turkey and Lebanon.
Which are incredible cuisines in their own right.
Of course. But looking at the notes, that felt like the right call, because while there is this shared Mediterranean vibe, Morocco seems to be the outlier. It feels heavier, more complex, maybe a little bit more mysterious than its eastern cousins.
Oh, it is the outlier, and for a very good reason.
Yeah.
Morocco is where the Occident meets the Orient, sure, but it's also where the Mediterranean crashes into the Atlantic Ocean and the Sahara Desert.
So it's getting hit from all sides.
From all sides. It has this very distinct personality that's been formed by empire, by geography, and this is crucial by the fact that it was never part of the Ottoman Empire.
I didn't realize that. That's a huge deal.
It's a massive deal. While the rest of the Arab world was, eating Turkish delight and following the lead of Constantinople, Morocco was doing its own thing. It was preserving a much, much older tradition.
So our mission today is to figure out how that history created a food culture that mixes sugar with meat, treats bread like a religious object, and relies on ingredients that range from lemons fermented in salt to nuts processed by, well,
By goats.
by goats and trees.
We will definitely get to the goats. But ultimately, we are trying to answer the why. Why does Moroccan food taste the way it does? Why is it considered one of the great high cuisines of the world, something you can compare to French or Chinese cooking in its nuance and its history?
Okay, so to understand the why, we have to go back to the map. Roden talks about this region as a crossroads of civilizations. Now, that phrase gets thrown around a lot in history books.
It does. It can be a bit of a cliche.
Right. But what does it actually mean for the food on the plate?
Well, if you look at the map, Morocco just sits at this gateway. First, you have the indigenous Berber population, the Mezes, who have been there for millennia. They're cooking with couscous, local grains, lamb, the foundational stuff.
The bedrock layer.
The bedrock. Then, in the 7th and 8th centuries, you get the first major wave of change, the Islamic Arab expansion. The Umayyad and Abbasid dynasties spread from Damascus all the way across North Africa and into Spain.
And this is the first major sort of flavor layer, the Arabization of North Africa.
Correct. But the real culinary explosion, the thing that makes Moroccan food Moroccan, in that high cuisine sense, comes from the other side of the strait. We have to talk about Al-Andalus,
Muslim Spain.
Muslim Spain.
This is the part of the research that it blew my mind. I think most people, myself included, assume Moroccan food influenced Spanish food, and it did, of course, but the arrow points the other way even more strongly.
It's a feedback loop, really.
No.
For nearly 800 years, you had this incredible cultural continuity between Morocco and Muslim Spain. It wasn't just armies marching back and forth.
No, it was an intellectual and agricultural superhighway.
It was. The Arabs brought these sophisticated irrigation techniques to Spain. They introduced crops that Europe had never seen before, or at least weren't common. Rice, sugarcane, artichokes, aubergines, citrus.
And in the courts of Cordoba and Granada, they took these ingredients and they refined them into a high culture.
A culture of incredible sophistication. And then 1492 happens.
The fall of Granada, the end of the Reconquista.
It's complete. The Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella, expelled the Muslims, the Moors, and also the Jews from Spain. And where do they go? They don't just vanish into thin air.
They cross that narrow strait of Gibraltar.
And they settle in Morocco.
Roden describes this as a culinary renaissance for Morocco.
Yeah.
These weren't just random refugees. These were the urban elite of what was, at the time, Europe's most advanced society.
They were the sophisticates. They were the doctors, the scholars, the musicians, the artists, the chefs. They settled in cities like Mezes, Tetuan, Tangier, and Rabat. And they brought with them the entire lifestyle of Andalusia.
So that's why the food in Moroccan cities is so distinct from the food in the countryside.
Absolutely. The city cuisine of Fez, in particular, is essentially the preserved cuisine of medieval Spain. It's complex, it's aromatic, it's sweet and savory, and it's incredibly refined.
I want to zoom in on one specific character here because he seems to be like the patient zero for all this refinement. Ziryab.
Ah, Ziryab. He's a titan. It is genuinely hard to overstate his influence on Western culture.
Calling him an influencer feels like the biggest undersell in history, even though he was literally the original trendsetter.
I mean, we're talking about a guy who arrives in Cordoba in 822 AD. He's a Kurdish lute player, a freed slave, effectively a political refugee from the court in Baghdad. And he proceeds to completely rewrite the social operating system of Europe.
It's wild. And it wasn't just food. Roden says he brought hygiene protocols.
Toothpaste, deodorants. He taught people to change their clothes based on the season, to wear light white fabrics in the summer and layered wools in the winter. Before him, people just wore the same heavy tunics year-round. He introduced new hairstyles, new music.
But let's focus on the food. Before Ziryab, the dining table was a bit of a free-for-all, right? Everything just piled up at once.
It was chaotic consumption. You'd have a massive table heaping with whatever was cooked. You just grabbed what you could. Ziryab introduces sequence.
Structure.
A narrative arc for a meal. He brought the concept that you should start with something light, like a soup or a broth, to warm the stomach and prepare the palate.
Okay.
Then you move to the substantial main course, the meat or the fish, and you finish with something sweet fruit, nuts, pastries, to close the appetite and aid digestion.
That is the mind-blowing part. The Western standard of the three-course meal, what we all think of as a French or Italian structure, is actually an Arab-Andalusian import brought by a Kurdish lute player in the 9th century.
The French get all the credit for the multi-course meal, but the blueprint was drawn in Muslim Spain. And Ziryab also brought with him the echoes of Persian court cuisine.
Right, he was from Baghdad.
He had spent time in Baghdad, which was heavily influenced by Persia. And that is where we get the fruit with meat combination.
The sweet and savory profile, that's the origin.
That is the origin. The Persians loved mixing lamb with apricots or chicken with a pomegranate and walnut sauce. Ziryab brought that sensibility to Spain. The Andalusians perfected it. And then, when they were expelled, they took it with them to Fez.
And that's why today a classic fassi tagine might be lamb with prunes and almonds.
Or chicken with preserved lemons and olives. That tension between sugar and salt, between sweet and savory, is the absolute hallmark of high Moroccan cuisine.
Speaking of Fez, one thing that really struck me in Roden's book is how intensely regional the food is. We tend to go to a restaurant and just see Moroccan food on the sign, but she makes it crystal clear that Fez is not Tangier, and Tangier is definitely not Marrakesh.
Oh, they're different culinary worlds. Fez is the stronghold of that bourgeois cuisine we just discussed, the Arab-Andalusian legacy. It's the most traditional, the most complex, the most refined.
And then if you go north to Tangier, what happens there?
Tangier and Tetuan are interesting. As I mentioned, the Ottoman Empire never conquered Morocco. However, refugees from Ottoman territories like Algeria and Tunisia did move to northern Morocco over the centuries. Plus, you have the proximity to modern Spain.
So you get different influences.
Totally. In the north, you find things that you just don't find in the south. You find baklava and tehaif, those phyllo-style pastries that are soaked in syrup.
Which are completely Ottoman.
They are Ottoman signatures.
Yeah.
You don't find them in traditional Marrakesh cooking. It's a different lineage.
And Marrakesh, what's its story?
Marrakesh is the gateway to the Sahara. It's an African city at its heart. So you have the Berber influence from the Atlas Mountains, which gives us the simple couscous and the grilled meats. But you also have the influence of the caravan routes coming up from places like Timbuktu.
So the flavors are different.
The food is earthier, more cumin, more heat sometimes. It's less about that delicate sweet-savory balance and more about bold, direct flavors.
It's fascinating how history is literally written in the recipes. If you know what you're eating, you can tell who conquered whom and who migrated where.
You really can.
But Roden also touches on a conflict that's happening right now. This tension between this deep, slow, ancient tradition and the pressures of the modern world. She tells this anecdote about being invited to meet a woman who was a pioneer of new Moroccan cooking.
Yes, the modern struggle. She arrives at this woman's house expecting to see some avant-garde technique, maybe some molecular gastronomy applied to tagine.
And instead,
She finds a pressure cooker. The cocotte minute.
to a food purist, that just sounds like heresy. I'm revolutionizing our ancient cuisine with a device from the 1950s.
It caused a huge scandal among the traditionalists at the time. They argue that the pressure cooker completely destroys the soul of the dish. A tagine is supposed to simmer gently for hours, the flavors melding slowly and deeply.
And the pressure cooker.
The pressure cooker forces the issue. It uses high heat and high pressure to basically smash the fibers of the meat into submission. The texture is different. The sauce doesn't reduce and concentrate in the same way. It's a shortcut.
But I have to push back on the purists here a little bit. Roden seems to take a more pragmatic view. For a woman working a full-time job in Casablanca today, the choice isn't slow tagine versus pressure cooker tagine.
No.
It's pressure cooker tagine versus takeout pizza.
That is the reality. And in a way, the pressure cooker is a tool of liberation. It allows the cuisine to actually survive in a modern economy where nobody has 6 hours to tend a charcoal fire.
Right. Roden acknowledges that cooking does not stand still. If the fundamental flavor profile survives, does it really matter if the meat was softened by physics in 45 minutes rather than by chemistry in 4 hours?
It's a fascinating question, and it's a good segue, actually.
Yeah.
Because even if the tools are changing, the setting for this food, the whole concept of hospitality, seems incredibly resilient. I want to step back inside that riad we imagined at the beginning.
The riad is more than just a house, isn't it? We talked about the privacy, the barrier from the outside world.
But we need to talk about the social contract of that space. When you are invited in as a guest, you leave the world behind. The ritual of eating there is almost theatrical.
Roden describes these low sofas, brass trays, and the air scented with jasmine and orange blossom water. It's all designed to force you to relax.
And notice the posture. You sit low, on cushions. The table is often a large, ornate brass tray set on folding wooden legs. It's temporary, it's brought in for the meal, and it's removed immediately after. And it's communal.
That's vital, isn't it? You don't have your own plate of food. Everyone is eating from one central vessel.
Which brings us to the mechanics of eating. The right hand.
Always the right hand.
Always the right hand. The left hand is reserved for, well, for hygiene. It is considered unclean for eating. You use the thumb and the first 2 fingers of your right hand. It's like a pincer.
And there are rules of engagement, right? You can't just dive in anywhere.
It's a geometry of politeness. You eat from the triangular section of the dish that is directly in front of you. It is considered incredibly rude to reach across the dish into someone else's territory.
But the host has a specific role here.
The host is the conductor. If there is a particularly choice piece of meat, a tender piece of lamb, or a perfectly cooked vegetable in the center or on someone else's side, the host will pick it out with their fingers and place it in front of the guest of honor.
It's an act of service, a gesture of generosity.
It is. Hospitality is paramount, and a huge part of that is abundance. It is considered shameful for the host if the plates are empty at the end of a meal.
So if the guests finish everything.
The host has failed, they didn't provide enough, there absolutely must be food left over.
I was a little worried about food waste when I was reading that, but she explains the whole ecosystem of the traditional household.
Nothing is wasted. In the traditional riad system, you have this hierarchy of consumption. The family and the honored guests eat first, then the leftovers, which are substantial, go to the household staff, the children, or the poorer relations who might be living in the house. It's a redistribution system built into the meal.
There's one specific food item that has a really special status in this ecosystem: bread.
Bread is sacred, cubs. It is not just a side dish, it is the primary utensil. You use the bread to scoop up the tagine.
It's your spoon.
It's your spoon. But spiritually, it's a symbol of life, of baraka or blessing. You never, ever, ever throw bread away with the trash.
She mentions that if a piece of bread falls on the floor, even in the street, you don't just step over it.
No. You pick it up, you kiss it, and you place it high up on a wall or a ledge so it doesn't get trampled on, and so that birds or other animals can eat it. It's a profound gesture of respect for sustenance.
And historically, the baking of this bread was the glue that held the neighborhood together.
The farin, the
Mm.
community oven. Yes. Until very recently, most homes did not have their own ovens. They had charcoal braziers for cooking tagines, but no oven for baking. So every morning, the women would knead their dough at home. They would stamp it with a unique family mark, like a specific pattern of fork bricks.
Like a brand.
A brand, exactly. And they'd send the raw dough on a tray, usually with a child, to the local farin.
The baker must have been the most informed person in the entire neighborhood.
He knew everything. He was the social hub. He knew who was eating well, who was cutting back on their bread budget. He knew whose dough was risen perfectly and whose was rushed. The decline of the farin as people buy their own modern gas ovens is another one of those slow, modern erosions of community.
You gain convenience, but you lose that daily intersection with all your neighbors.
You do. But there is perhaps a bigger loss happening in the Moroccan kitchen, one that Roden calls the hidden face of Morocco,
Yep.
the dadas. This was the most complex and, frankly, difficult part of the book for me, because it forces us to look at a very painful history.
It does. It's impossible to talk about Moroccan high cuisine without talking about the dada.
And a dada is not just any cook. The term refers to a master cook, but historically, it specifically refers to a woman of black African descent, a woman whose lineage originates from the slave trade.
Roden puts this in the historical context of Sultan Moulay Ismail in the 17th century.
Moulay Ismail was this incredibly powerful and long-reigning sultan who created a massive personal army, the Black Guard, and this army was recruited, often forcibly, from the Sudan and the Sahel region of Africa.
The men became his elite warriors.
And the women were brought into domestic service in the palaces and the wealthy homes.
It reminds me of the complex power dynamics in the culinary history of the American South. You have this marginalized figure who is legally property, or later a servant, yet she possesses the most valuable intellectual property in the entire household.
The recipes.
The recipe.
That is a very, very valid parallel. In the Moroccan context, over centuries, these women became the absolute guardians of the culinary tradition. In some wealthy families, they were sometimes taken as fourth wives or concubines, but in the kitchen, their authority was absolute.
And this was an oral tradition? Recipes weren't written down?
Nothing was written down. The Dada carried the entire culinary heritage of the family, of the city, in her head. She was the archive.
A living library.
A living library. She knew exactly how many grains of mastic to put in the pigeon pie. She knew the family's secret spice blend for the Ras el Hanout. Roden even mentions they were believed to have a kind of supernatural influence.
What do you mean?
They would throw certain types of incense into the fire to drive away the genaun, the mischievous spirits or devils that might spoil the food. They were the bridge between the physical act of cooking and the spiritual well-being of the house.
But today, that library is, for lack of a better term, it's burning down.
The Dadas are disappearing. The institution of the live-in Dada, who raises the children and rules the kitchen for her entire lifetime, is just incompatible with modern labor structures and modern society. The old generation is passing away.
Are there any left?
Some have transitioned into becoming professional caterers for huge weddings and events. They're the new Dadas. But that direct, unbroken line of oral tradition from one generation to the next within a family is breaking.
Which makes books like Arabesque more than just cookbooks. They're ethnography. They're documentation of an oral history before it goes silent forever.
Precisely. If Roden hadn't interviewed these women back in the 80s and 90s, some of those very specific, nuanced techniques might have simply vanished entirely.
Okay, let's get into the kitchen ourselves then. Let's talk about the toolkit. Because if I, or you listening, want to cook Moroccan food, I can't just use salt and pepper. I need to get my head around the science of their core ingredients.
You need the aromatics. And the first one, the absolute non-negotiable cornerstone, is the preserved lemon.
I think when people hear preserved lemon, they just think pickle. They assume it's sitting in vinegar. But Roden is very specific here. You do not add liquid.
That is the crucial variable. It is lactofermentation in its purest form. You take small, thin-skinned lemons, you cut them in quarters, but you leave them attached at the base so they kind of open like a flower.
Okay.
You pack them inside and out with coarse salt, and then you cram them into a jar. You have to push them down really violently so they release their own juice.
And that's where the biology kicks in. The salt draws out all the liquid from the lemons.
It's osmotic pressure. The salt is pulling the juice right out of the fruit cells. That juice, mixed with that high concentration of salt, creates its own brine. Now, here is the magic.
Go on.
The salt kills off all the pathogenic bacteria that would normally make the lemons rot. But the good bacteria, lactobacillus, which is naturally present on the lemon skins, thrives in this salty anaerobic environment.
And the bacteria eat the sugar in the fruit.
Correct. They convert the fruit sugars into lactic acid. And that's why the flavor profile changes so drastically over the course of a few weeks. You aren't just getting a salty lemon. You're getting this umami-rich, floral, almost piney depth that fresh lemon juice simply doesn't have. The texture of the rind transforms from fibrous and bitter to buttery and soft. It's a complete chemical metamorphosis.
Roden does offer a cheat code for the impatient, though, the unorthodox method.
The quick boil. You can boil the lemons in salted water for about 25 minutes until they're soft, then pack them in oil.
But it's not the same, is it?
It softens the peel, yes, but you don't get the fermentation. You miss out on that complex, funky, incredible depth that comes from the bacterial activity. It's a serviceable substitute if you're in a huge hurry,
Yeah.
but it's not the real thing.
Next in the toolkit, olives.
Moroccan olives are exceptional. And Roden clarifies something that I think many people don't realize. The three main colors, green, violet, and black, aren't necessarily different species of olive tree.
They're stages of ripeness.
Exactly. The violet olive is just a teenager. Green is unripe, violet is turning, and black is fully ripe.
And because the chemistry is different at each stage, they're treated differently.
Right. As they ripen, the sugar content goes up and the bitterness goes down. So violet olives are often cured with things like bitter orange skins to highlight that transitional fruity flavor. Black olives are usually salt-cured and sun-dried, which dehydrates them and concentrates the flavor into that wrinkly, intense umami bomb we all know.
And then we have the oil, not olive oil, but the liquid gold of Morocco, argan oil.
This is a product that exists literally nowhere else on Earth. The argan tree is a relic species from the Tertiary period. It's ancient, and it grows exclusively in the calcareous soil of southwest Morocco.
And this is where we finally get to the goats.
This is the famous image, goats standing in trees. It looks like a cartoon or, bad Photoshop.
It really does.
But the goats climb the gnarly branches to eat the fruit of the argan tree, which looks a bit like a shriveled olive.
But we aren't eating the fruit.
No, the fruit is for the goat. But inside that fruit is a very, very hard nut. The goat can't digest the nut. So we have to talk about the biological processing unit here.
The goat's stomach.
The goat eats the fruit. Its stomach acids dissolve the fleshy pulp, which is useless for making oil, and the hard nut passes through its system and is deposited on the ground.
It's nature's hulling machine.
It is. And traditionally, the local Berber women would collect these nuts, which had been conveniently cleaned by the goat's digestive system, crack them open with rocks to get the little kernels inside, and then press the oil.
I have to ask, does the goat interaction affect the final flavor?
Well, it certainly gives it a certain barnyard terroir, perhaps. But Roden notes that modern production has largely sanitized this process.
Oh, good.
For the high-quality cosmetic and culinary oil that gets sold internationally, the pulp is usually removed mechanically now. But the cracking of the nuts themselves is still largely done by hand, mostly by women's cooperatives. It's an incredibly labor-intensive process.
And what does it taste like? It's not like olive oil.
Not at all. It's nutty. Think of a deeper, toastier version of hazelnut oil or sesame oil. And it's a finishing oil. You absolutely do not fry in it. The heat destroys the delicate flavor, and frankly, the oil is far too expensive. You drizzle it on couscous or tagine at the end, or you just dip bread in it.
Let's move to the spice cabinet. Ras El Hanout.
The head of the shop. The name implies this is the very best, most complex mixture the spice merchant has to offer. It's a proprietary blend.
Yeah, it can have dozens of ingredients.
Anywhere from 20 to 50 different spices. Cardamom, nutmeg, mace, ginger, turmeric, all kinds of peppers, dried rosebuds, lavender.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare to balance all of those flavors.
It is the ultimate test of a spice merchant's skill. And historically, it contains some controversial ingredients.
The beetle.
The Spanish fly beetle.
Yeah.
Cantharides. It was known as a potent aphrodisiac.
I bet it was.
But it's also quite toxic in high doses. It's obviously banned in most Western imports now, and largely in Morocco too. But it speaks to this key idea in Moroccan culture that the line between food and medicine is basically non-existent. Spices are there for flavor, yes, but they're also there to cure, to warm the body, to stimulate, to calm.
Speaking of value, let's talk about saffron. Roden gives a clear warning about the poor man's saffron.
Turmeric.
Yeah.
Look, turmeric is a great spice. It's anti-inflammatory, gives a beautiful yellow color. But its flavor is earthy and slightly bitter. Real saffron, the stigmas of the Crocus sativus flower, has this metallic, honeyed, hay-like aroma that is completely unmistakable.
And it's the most expensive spice in the world for a reason.
The harvest mechanics are insane. Each flower produces only 3 tiny red stigmas. You need something like 150,000 flowers to make 1 kilogram of saffron. And every single one must be harvested by hand at dawn before the sun gets too hot.
So when you see a saffron chicken dish on a menu for $5, you know it's probably turmeric.
Or just yellow food coloring. Tartrazine. If you want the real, authentic flavor of fez, you need to use the actual threads.
One thing that really defines that flavor profile for me is that lack of a hard separation between dinner and dessert flavors.
The sweet and savory balance. This is the Andalusian legacy we discussed. Using honey, sugar, and cinnamon in meat dishes is completely normal. A lamb tagine with prunes and almonds. Or, the most famous example, a pigeon pie dusted with powdered sugar and cinnamon.
That pie, bastilla. This brings us to the pastry argument. I always just assumed you use phyllo dough for something like this.
And that is the great debate. The traditional Moroccan pastry is called warka. It means leaf or paper. And the physics of how you make it are completely different from phyllo or strudel dough.
How so? With phyllo, you're stretching it, right?
With phyllo, you roll and stretch a piece of dough until it's transparently thin. With warka, you start with a sticky, wet dough. It's almost a batter. You hold a ball of it in your hand, and you dab it onto a hot, flat metal surface. You tap, tap, tap very quickly. You're leaving a microscopic film of the batter that cooks instantly into a lace-like sheet.
So you're essentially painting the dough onto the hot pan.
You're painting it on. It creates a texture that is crisp, but also tender and a bit chewy. It doesn't shatter into a million pieces quite like phyllo does. It holds the heavy, rich filling of the bastilla much better.
But Roden gives us permission to use phyllo, right? For those of us who aren't master warka painters.
She does. She tells a great story about a Moroccan cook who was sent to Disneyland, of all places, to demonstrate Moroccan cooking for some festival.
Amazing.
They ran out of their supply of homemade warka. A Lebanese team in the booth nearby lent them some commercial phyllo dough, and the result was, well, it was fine. The Moroccan cook admitted it was perfectly satisfactory.
So if a Moroccan pro at the Magic Kingdom can use phyllo in a pinch, you can too?
You can too. Just make sure you butter it very, very generously between the layers.
That makes me feel a lot better. Okay, so we have the ingredients. We need the vessels. The tagine.
A word that causes so much confusion. Because tagine is the name of the pot, but it's also the name of the stew that's cooked inside it.
Let's look at the engineering of the pot itself, that conical lid. Why the cone shape? Is it just aesthetic?
No, not at all. It's pure thermodynamics tailored to a desert environment. Think about it. When you cook a stew, the water in the food turns to steam and rises.
Right.
In a normal pot with a flat lid, a lot of that steam finds a way to escape, or it just drips down the sides. In a tagine, the cone-shaped lid stays cooler at the top than the base does. The steam rises, hits the cool interior sides of the cone, condenses back into liquid, and then trickles down the sides right back into the food.
So it's a self-basting system, a closed loop.
It's a closed-loop convection system. It allows you to cook meat and vegetables until they are falling apart tender using a tiny, tiny amount of water. In a region where water has always been a scarce and precious resource, this is just brilliant low-tech engineering.
And Roden distinguishes between different colors of tagine stews, different styles.
Yes, the sauce, the market determines the identity of the dish. Broadly, you have makwali, which is a yellow sauce made with saffron and ginger, usually cooked in oil. And you have makamer, which is a red sauce made with cumin and paprika, usually cooked in butter. The rules are strict. You would never put paprika in a makwali.
But the true national dish, the one that Roden says has an almost quasi-mystical character, is couscous.
Couscous is the soul of the Maghreb. It is the food of Friday lunch, of celebration, of funerals, of charity. It binds society together.
And let's be clear, it's not a grain, strictly speaking. It's a pasta.
It is tiny, tiny pellets of pasta. It's made from semolina, which is a coarse flour from durum wheat. And the traditional process of making it, of rolling it by hand, is this incredible tactile feat.
A communal activity.
Women would gather together. They'd sit around a huge, shallow bowl. They'd dampen the coarse semolina with a little salt water, and then roll it with the palm of their hand in a circular clockwise motion.
Roden describes the gold texture as velvety.
Yes. As they roll, they gradually add fine flour, which coats each individual grain. The goal is to keep every single grain separate, light, and fluffy. They say the finished grains should be like ants' heads.
Tiny and distinct. And the cooking method. This is where we all go so wrong in the West.
We boil it. We pour boiling water over it and let it sit. We treat it like rice. That is a culinary crime in Morocco.
You must steam it.
You must steam it. You use a special pot called a couscousier. It's a double-decker pot. The stew of meat and vegetables cooks in the bottom pot. The steam from that stew rises through holes into the top pot, where it gently cooks the couscous.
So the couscous is literally infused with the flavor of the meat and the vegetables below it?
Exactly. And you don't just steam it once. The traditional method involves steaming it, dumping it out into a bowl, fluffing it with your hands with a bit of oil or butter and some cold water, and then putting it back to steam again, usually 3 times. The result is impossibly light, fluffy, and aromatic.
The instant stuff we buy in boxes is what, just pre-cooked?
It's pre-cooked and then dried. It's convenient, no question, but it's dense and heavy compared to the real thing.
But even Roden admits that the Industrial Revolution has finally hit the couscous world.
She tells this amazing story. She visited a couscous factory in Tunisia. The owner proudly showed her the massive, modern production line, and then at the end, he leaned in and whispered a secret to her.
What was it?
He said, "I know we put the traditional steaming instructions on the box for the purists, but honestly, between you and me, you can just use a microwave."
The betrayal from the factory owner himself.
It was a confession. But it shows that even in the heart of the tradition, convenience is a powerful force. If the factory owner in Tunisia is secretly microwaving his couscous, maybe we can cut ourselves some slack.
Okay, so we've rolled our couscous, we've preserved our lemons, now we're actually hungry. Let's go out to eat. Roden describes one place that sounds like the ultimate food experience on earth. Jama al-Fana in Marrakesh.
The gastro theater. There is nothing else like it in the world. By day, the square is a circus. You've got snake charmers, storytellers, acrobats, tooth pullers.
But as the sun sets, a transformation happens.
Hundreds of food stalls on wheels are rolled into the square. Trestle tables and benches are set up, and the whole place just erupts.
The sensory shift must be incredible.
Smoke everywhere. The smell of grilling meat, of bubbling pots, of sheep's heads, of snail soup, the aggressive calls of the vendors. It becomes this massive, chaotic, democratic, open-air dining room. It's the absolute pinnacle of street food culture, the complete opposite of that refined, private Riyadh dinner.
But if we are back at the Riyadh for that dinner, the meal starts with kibbeh.
Appetizers. An assortment of many small cooked salads. And this is where the vegetable really shines in Moroccan cuisine. In the West, we tend to boil vegetables as an afterthought, a side dish. In Morocco, a simple carrot or eggplant salad is a complex, composed dish in its own right.
I love the phrase she uses for how these salads are traditionally made. Weighing with the eye.
Aynak mizanak. Your eye is your scale. There are no precise measurements in traditional Moroccan cooking. No teaspoons or tablespoons. You taste, you look, you adjust. It's all intuitive.
Let's highlight a few of these kibbeh dishes because I think they illustrate the flavor theory of the cuisine perfectly. The sweet tomato puree, matesha masla.
This one really confuses people. It's tomatoes cooked down for hours with honey, cinnamon, and sugar until it's basically a jam.
Tomato jam, you'd never see that here.
You never see it. It's served as a dip or a side dish for meat, and it totally messes with your expectations. You expect acidity and savory from a tomato dish, and instead you get this rich, sweet, aromatic flavor. It illustrates that ancient Persian influence perfectly.
And zalouk.
The classic eggplant salad. The key here again is the technique. You char the whole eggplant over an open flame or under a broiler until the skin is completely black and blistered.
That gets rid of the bitterness, right?
It gets rid of the bitterness and it infuses the flesh with this incredible smoky flavor. Then you scrape out the flesh and mash it with garlic, cumin, paprika, and a bit of tomato. It's rich and silky and smoky.
One combination that really jumped out at me from the book was the orange and olive salad.
It sounds jarring to a Western palate, doesn't it? Just sliced oranges, salty black olives, some thinly sliced onion, and a sprinkle of cumin.
Yeah, fruit salad with onions. It sounds wrong.
But think about the balance. The sweet, acidic juice of the orange cuts right through the salty, oily richness of the olive. The raw onion provides a sharp, pungent bite, and the cumin grounds it all with this warm earthiness. It's incredibly refreshing. It's designed to act as a palate cleanser amidst all the rich meat tagines.
And running through all of these salads, of course, is our old friend, the preserved lemon.
It's everywhere. It's chopped up in the potato salad, it's mashed into the spinach salad, it's cooked with the fava beans and artichokes. It is the signature acidity of the cuisine. It's what makes everything taste so bright and alive.
So we've journeyed from the medieval courts of Baghdad to the mountains of the Berbers, from the hidden kitchens of the Dadas to the smoky street stalls of Marrakesh. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's a big takeaway for you?
I think it comes down to a line from Roden. She writes that cooking does not stand still, and that feels like the core philosophy here. We see a cuisine that is so deeply, profoundly rooted in history, in oral traditions, in specific religious rituals, in ancient trade routes, but is also a living, breathing thing.
It survived that massive shock of the move from Andalusia to Morocco in 1492.
Exactly. It adapted then, absorbing the local Berber ingredients and techniques, and now it's adapting again. The dadas are disappearing. The communal ovens are closing. The pressure cooker is replacing the clay pot.
The microwave is cooking the couscous.
The microwave is cooking the couscous. It feels a bit melancholy, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like a loss.
It is a loss, in a way. We mourn the loss of that slow communal life that produced this food. But the flavor profile, that unique, unmistakable fingerprint of cumin, lemon, saffron, and the sweet savory tension, that remains. The soul of the food is finding new vessels. It might not be in a clay tagine over a charcoal fire anymore, but if the taste still transports you to Fez, then the culture is alive.
That's a beautiful thought. The culture survives in the flavor, not just in the specific tools or rituals.
I think so. And this openness to change is actually part of the tradition, if you think about it. Ziryab changed everything in the 9th century. The Andalusian refugees changed everything in the 15th. The pressure cooker is just the latest chapter in a long story of adaptation.
So here's our challenge to you, the listener. You might not be able to build a riad in your backyard. You might not have a dada to pass down her secrets to you. But you can buy a bag of lemons and a box of salt.
Make a jar of preserved lemons. It takes 5 minutes of active prep time. You just cut them, salt them, and squash them into a jar. And then you just have to wait.
Or try the tomato jam. The next time you make a basic tomato sauce, throw in a spoonful of honey and a pinch of cinnamon. See what happens.
Bring a little piece of that long, complex history into your own kitchen. Break the rules of what you think dinner is supposed to taste like.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive into Arabesque. We'll see you in the next episode, where we will probably be hungry again.
Always hungry.
Bye for now.